Number 5 Washington holding on to beat number 11 Oregon State on the road 22-20. Washington heads to the Pac-12 championship with that win against Oregon State, and it was hard fought in the rain, murky, muddy weather, bad passing weather, and yet and still we got to see Washington's offense come up with the goods right when they needed to, and quiet as it kept, that real good Washington defense showed up. We haven't always seen real good Washington. We've seen so-so Washington most of the way. But every now and again, they can pitch a gem like this. For instance, they did that against Arizona State, and we didn't talk about that because we were talking about, well, what was Michael Penix Jr. and Rome Odunze doing or not doing? But I think this is a really great win for Washington, precisely because Michael Penix Jr. did not play very well. 162 yards passing, and really didn't complete that many passes. 7 of them, though, were to Rome Odunze, who had over 100 yards receiving. I believe if Marvin Harrison Jr. is wide receiver 1 and ought to be a unanimous All-American, wide receiver 2 is Rome Odunze. I don't know about unanimous All-American because Troy Franklin's out there doing some things, but you can see how important he has been to their success. When they were in gotta-have-it situations, they basically dialed up ISO, man-to-man. Let's see if you can hold off Rome and see if Mike can find him, give him a shot. And that was enough to get that win against Oregon State. They also have really acquitted themselves well in what I think is one of the toughest schedules in the sport this year. We're talking about a Washington team that ran through Arizona and Oregon, right, who are top 25 programs, and then a back-to-back-to-back gauntlet run that I don't think many other teams, I don't think there are 4 other teams that could run that gauntlet the way they did. In first, you go and you get USC at the Coliseum. Then you invite Utah to the house. You get them. And then you go to Oregon State, where they had been 5-0 in Corvallis, and you hand them an L. That's outstanding stuff. Like, if they beat Washington State in the Apple Cup this weekend, they're the regular season conference champ, but we don't have regular season conference champs. We have conference championships, right? I've heard the point that, hey, the conference championship game is about money. Hey, dog, this is college football. It's all about money. Stay woke. Number 2, I think that Washington would like the opportunity to go beat, say, Arizona, if they could get there, or Oregon, if they could get there. Oregon State would need to beat Oregon for Arizona to have a shot there. But you get my point here. You want to show folks that you can beat this team in Oregon that many think is better than you. And I would agree with most that Oregon probably should have won that game in Seattle if Dan Lanning isn't absolutely going YOLO and going for it on 4th down when he probably shouldn't. But scoreboard needs to matter here. And that's what I think is the point. And for those that think that Oregon is a better team than Washington, I would do what Washington is doing right now. Scoreboard. Scoreboard. Okay? One of us has a 0 in the loss column. One of us has a 1 in the loss column that we gave them. And until that is different, stay on the horse. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm from Oklahoma. We do rodeo here as a collegiate sport. And I'm telling you, Washington, stay on the horse. Stay on the bull, all right? Everybody's saying you're not that good, but as long as you stay on the bull, you can tell them to shove their bull. You know what I'm saying? I also think that this is very, very cut and dry for them. You beat Wazoo, you beat Oregon, and you are getting into the college football playoff. That is at least the attitude that I would take, because every undefeated Power 5 champion has gotten into the playoff. But that is also because, right, we don't have that many undefeated Power 5 champs. As a matter of fact, we're not going to have 5, right? We're going to have 4. And if all 4 are undefeated, I think that's your final 4. Washington has that very squarely within their sights. But I would also be remiss if I didn't mention in this gauntlet run, we got to see Washington get stretched and what they look like in pressure situations. And for the second consecutive week, they were held scoreless in the second half. You can't do that against Oregon or even Arizona for that matter. You're going to have to find ways to go get points in the second half, because you keep that trend up. Oregon is absolutely efficient enough to take you apart and good enough defensively to give you problems. Now, it's great that you have a developing run game. Like, with the weather being what it was, Ryan Grubb in that offense was forced to give Dylan Johnson the ball 16 times, and he acquitted himself well with 89 rush yards, again, against a really good Oregon State defense. That's as Big Ten as the Pac-12 has ever been with that Oregon State offensive defense, the way they were able to play. And I think that defense is capable of beating Oregon a second time. But will that defense show up in a Pac-12 championship game? We'll have to wait and see. That is a great way to get into my top 25 and the Associated Press top 25. And for the first time, I believe all year, we're identical 1 through 9. Like, I don't normally agree with what they're doing. And yet, here's where we are. Like, I was really having this discussion about, did Georgia show me enough in their win, just ridiculous win against Tennessee, 38-10, to take over that 1 spot? And did Michigan show me fragility? And what did Ohio State show me? What did Washington show me? So I'm getting into this. I'm going, okay, Georgia was dominant against a top 25 opponent. I don't think Tennessee is very good. Ask Florida about that, right? And we'll get to Missouri here in a second. But you're being dominant against teams that I want you to be dominant against. You also have 4 ranked victories, okay? Michigan doesn't have that many. But the thing that I had Michigan at number 1 for was being dominant. They were not dominant against Penn State, even though it looked like they were in control. And they were not dominant against Maryland. And Maryland is not Penn State. And if Maryland doesn't make mistakes, I think we're talking about them having a real shot to beat Michigan, which is not untrue from last year. That was a 1-score game last year in Ann Arbor. And then Ohio State finally began to look like the Ohio State that we know. That's the one with an offense to pair with an outstanding defense. I remember going into the season and asking Ryan Day about Jim Knowles in year 2, and he says, we think we can be as good as we were in 2019 defensively, which raised an eyebrow for me. But check this out. The Ohio State defense has not allowed an explosive play of 40 yards or more all year. Nobody has scored more than 17 points on that Ohio State defense in any one outing. They tackle in front of themselves. They turn you over. They get important stops. For the first time in 4 years, it is the Ohio State defense and not just Ohio State's defense, right? And in the second half against Minnesota particularly, I got to see that offense finally function like I expect a Ryan Day offense to function. From Travion Henderson to Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka doing some work in the first half, Kyle McCord looking good enough to beat Michigan, which is what we're talking about, right? So if you get second half Ohio State against Michigan in Ann Arbor on Saturday, I think that is the team that is capable of knocking off the 2-time defending Big Ten champions. Just outstanding play from that offense and in what needed to be an efficient performance against a Minnesota team that isn't very good. Michigan fans be the first to tell you, hey, we put 50 up on Minnesota and they scored just 10. You're talking about them putting up 37 and allowing just 3. I'm going, well, Ohio State has also allowed just 6 points to its last 2 opponents. I don't care that they're Minnesota and Michigan State. Keeping people from scoring TDs is a very big deal at the Power 5 level. And then when you're able to score like they've been able to score, right? Split the difference of 75 points. Yeah, 37 and 38, that's good enough. And I think you get into the 30s against Michigan, that's a game you can win. And I also think that they have the better opportunities to be explosive. Like in short yardage situations, I want Blake Corum. If I got to have a big play, I need Travion Henderson in the backfield. And since Mayan Williams has gone down, Travion Henderson has played outstanding football. It's almost like that dude doesn't like to share. It's almost like that dude's like, get me as many touches as you can, and I will go put up these yards. He had 146 on the ground against Minnesota. He's had a couple of 200-yard from scrimmage performances, and with him as the bell cow, they look like they know what they are doing, and you're getting man-on-man for 1-8 when you can and forcing people to come down to the box, right? And you can do that. Marvin Harrison Jr. can go to work for you. So can Cade Stover. So can Emeka Egbuka. I think Ohio State's in a position to really give Michigan a great battle on Saturday, but Michigan's still the 3rd best team in all of college football to me. No Jim Harbaugh being there doesn't seem to matter. They know what they're going to do and they know how they want to do it. And they get later into November, we're talking about a team that is going to run behind its 2-time Joe Moore award-winning offensive line. Like they got 7 guys on that offensive line. They really love, they have a package where they put all 7 of those dudes on the line. They line up the deuce in the backfield and they say, go get us 6. And that guy is probably going to break his teammate Hassan Haskins' record, former teammate, for rushing TDs in a season. He's already got the rushing TD record for a career with 51 and counting. And he scored a rushing TD in 11 straight games, basically going back to the one for which he blew out his knee against Ohio State. So if you get on schedule, you can do what you want to do. But with J.J. McCarthy seeming to regress, frankly, the last couple of weeks. I have some reservations about how they're going to be able to move the ball down the field when they get in a third and long situations. And are you going to be able to trust Rome Wilson to go out there and win a one-on-one against a guy like Jordan Hancock or Denzel Burke? Are you going to be able to trust Colston Loveland to take on one of those safeties like a Josh Proctor and go get you a really difficult first down? I expect this game to be back and forth. I expect this game to be really fun. But I have never done a live tailgate event where Ohio State has won the game. Every live tailgate event that I have done, Michigan has won the game. And we're talking about years in a row with Ohio State not losing that game. And I'm just saying, Michigan, I'm your lucky charm. Maybe you just need to have me on the mic as you try to go do your thing. But even so, right, I think that there is a path for the loser of the game to get into the college football playoff, which leads me back to Washington, Florida State, and really Oregon. Those three right there. Washington, as I mentioned, take care of business. Florida State, I think, is the same thing.
If you like what you've seen, consider subscribing to the #1 college football show on YouTube, the Fox Sports app, or wherever you get your podcast.